Don't cross it. You'll be sorry. Hello and welcome to the China Podcast, episode 10. We're all finished with work and ready to celebrate Spring Festival, which is coming very shortly. I'm looking forward to visiting the family and eating some good food. I don't quite know what the plans are with regards to eating arrangements yet. I don't know where I'm going to go and on what day. Have you got a set plan?
No real set arrangements as such, no. I imagine visiting people, eating a lot of food, of course, yeah. Are you going to watch the New Year's show?
I never watched the New Year's show.
That's brilliant.
I usually watch the New Year's show the day after New Year's.
I love sitting down watching the New Year's show all day long, listening to the hosts, making speeches.
And watching all the dances.
All the dances. I love it all. I love it.
Yeah, they'll try to...
I can't get enough of it. If they could have one every day for the 9 days, for 7 days, whatever it is.
I can get enough of it. Like, what's going to happen in my family is they're going to eat lunch, then they're going to play mahjong, then they're going to eat dinner, then they're going to play mahjong.
Mm-hmm.
And then the fireworks are going to go off, and that's going to be it. And then the following day it'll be lunch, mahjong, dinner, mahjong, lunch, mahjong, dinner, mahjong, repeat ad infinitum. And yeah, that's going to be the story of Spring Festival.
That's Spring Festival in a nutshell.
That's Spring Festival in a nutshell for most of China, yeah.
And by the way, I'm not looking forward to the show. I don't watch it.
You don't watch it?
I have no interest, no more interest.
You have watched it though?
I have seen, bits of it.
Bits of it, yeah. It just seems, it's just a Spring Festival party, you know.
It's a party, it's a celebration.
Celebration.
And millions upon millions upon millions of people will sit down and watch it.
Yeah. It's kind of the thing.
And as you say, it's on repeat pretty much every day. For a few days afterwards.
Yeah. So if I'm...
Across multiple channels, not just one.
Not just the one channel, yeah. It'll be on CCTV 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It'll be on all of them.
They might show a good film.
They might. But, while everyone's playing mahjong and eating dinner, there's lots of time to go and do some things that you might have been meaning to do.
Yes, like the art gallery we went to on Wednesday.
Yeah, the multiplayer exhibition. I thought it was pretty good. I was worried they'd miss the point of the exhibition entirely. If they're looking at changes within cultural ecology, that doesn't mean just technology. There are many factors which shape the space that surrounds you. Technology is a big one, granted, but I was happy to see they explored different avenues too. What was your favourite piece?
My favourite piece, now there were a lot of really interesting stuff.
There was,
but the one that kind of jumped out at me was a little exhibition called the Landscape Series by Li Jiaxin, the artist. And what it was, essentially, he had laid out a number of suitcases in various places in a small little space, out in the open.
Yeah.
And if you looked inside these suitcases, because they were opened a little bit, and if you peeked inside, what could you see, Eoin?
It was like the exterior of old Chinese buildings with air conditioners attached, and people hanging out their washing, hanging out their sausages, and all of that. It was all. It was made by. Like it looked like a clay sort of a thing, but there were wires and stuff.
Wires and stuff holding it all together, yeah. And so they're essentially like little cities inside of suitcases.
Little cities inside of suitcases,
and not just suitcases as well, but panels of wood on the wall. One of them that I thought was really cool. On top of rocks as well.
Yeah, there was a piece of a building which had obviously been taken down. It was still it was concrete connected by the rebar, and on top of this they had created images of the exterior of apartment buildings. It was pretty cool.
So what you had were like hundreds. The artist managed to fit in hundreds of little caged windows, the old style that you see in older parts of cities, and managed to fit them into a very big suitcase.
Yeah, and you had to kind of look up. One of them was hung above your head, so you had to look up at it, and There was another one down on the ground that you had to get down and look at it, and there was another couple around the back, so you had to, and you actually had to.
So it actually was interactive.
It was interactive, yeah.
And this was the premise of the whole exhibition.
Yeah,
it was to be interactive.
Yeah.
Another one I liked were the waves.
The waves, yeah.
And this was a thing on the ground where if you walked along, there were like, you could make little waves behind you. There was this kind of roundy, kind of shadowy effect on the ground.
Yeah, it was like it was
like
almost
a sensor kind of thing.
Yeah,
I don't know where it came from. I don't know where the source was.
Neither do I.
But I was able to make the waves.
No, I couldn't.
You couldn't. No,
I had my Nike Air soles, so my Nike Air Max.
You're too light on your feet.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it was cool as well with the actual light that was used, because it would go from black and white to putting in shades of purple and green, and it just was visually appealing. Yeah.
Was that your favorite part?
No, the Red Lake was my favorite part.
So it was a short film.
It was
a long short film.
It was a long short film. Yeah, it must have been 20 minutes long, but it was, again, it just, without context whatsoever, it was just a weird story that just made you think. It was Zhang Moying, something like that.
Was that the name of the artist?
That was the name of the artist. It had 3 old people and a young kid that was trapped in a cave. They beat him to death numerous times and force fed him and all sorts of stuff. It was weird. But I like weird. So, anyway, a big thank you to all our listeners, and we appreciate the feedback we've received to date. A like and a follow on whatever your favourite platform is would be appreciated. We spoke last week about being able to keep the podcast relevant to what is going on in China at the minute. And this week, we are happy to be able to do just that.
Yeah, we certainly are. We also have new countries listening to us.
We do have new countries.
Colombia,
yeah,
is one that stands out for me. There's been a few listens from Colombia.
Yeah.
And the guys in Belgium, yeah, they're still listening.
They're still listening.
They're still going.
Yeah.
Which again, yeah, of course, we are very, very grateful for. But yeah, it's a big week for us, both with lots of preparation, some travel, with lots of planning about what we are going to be bringing you in the coming weeks and months as well.
And that's all right. That's right. But I want you to picture something.
Go on. What am I picturing?
You're sitting at home in Ireland, and all of a sudden, your mother and your brother decide to get up and go to Africa for 2 weeks. And then you're kind of looking at him. You see your neighbour, and your neighbour is also, he's got up and he's went to Africa for 2 weeks.
For a holiday?
Yeah. And you're looking around and you notice that all your neighbours are gone. You go into town, there's nobody there, shops are closed, and everyone has taken 2 weeks off and they've all went to Africa.
Right, that's a lot of people going to Africa. Why are they going to Africa?
Yeah, so you go to Dublin and you notice that the shops and the restaurants, they're all closed too. And some of them have signs in windows saying they've gone to Africa.
The Moroccan Tourist Board would be very happy now.
Yeah,
the sounds of that.
The poor phase makers' hands would start to hurt. They'd be working their fingers to the bone.
And of course, you'd have an awful lot of pyramid-shaped fridge magnets being sold.
You would. And so as you're in Dublin walking around, you realise that everybody in Ireland, they've all gone to Africa. And everyone in England and France and Germany, in fact, the whole population of the EU just left and went on a 2-week holiday to Africa.
How many people is that?
450 million people.
Right. Would it be some laugh if everyone in Ireland, they all went to the same hotel? Right. They all rocked up there, 5 million people, and they're standing outside some kind of Holiday Inn. Right. And half of them are complaining because they have room keys that don't work.
Yeah, that'd happen in Holiday Inn, alright. And yeah, Africa seems nice. Like that sounds like torture. Can you imagine? I can't deal with the subway half the time. There's just too many people.
Yeah, so why are we talking about Africa? Well, we're just using it as an analogy, really, to talk about Spring Festival, also known as Chunyun. And this is when people in China travel during Spring Festival. That's the term.
Yeah. Now, so we are indeed talking about Spring Festival and Chunyun. Spring Festival falls on the 1st of February this year. And over the course of Chunyun, people are going to leave their city homes and go back to their hometowns to celebrate with their families.
Chunyun is a 40-day period in China that started this Monday, the 17th of January, and it'll continue right up until February the 25th.
Yeah, and it is absolutely the best time to go to Beijing and Shanghai if you don't like crowds. I arrived in Beijing during Chunyun, and it was glorious going through Tiananmen Square with no crowds. The only people there were foreigners, and there were no queues for the Forbidden City or any of the tourist spots.
Yeah, well, I imagine it wouldn't be this year, though, with the Winter Olympics. It's probably pretty busy there.
You'd have to be pretty committed to come here for the Olympics. There are no quarantine exemptions like what Djokovic got in, or was going to get in the Australian Open. The Chinese people, they won't be going. There are expected to be 300 million people traveling for winter sports this year in China, but not for the Olympics because there is no sale of public tickets. There's no sale of tickets to the public. These 300 million people will just be going skiing or ice skating.
Yeah, just doing their own thing.
Yeah.
Or they might be doing the skeleton. Would you fancy that?
Face first down an ice slide. I would rather deal with the people in a supermarket on Spring Festival.
Well, Spring Festival is a big deal. So, what are we talking about here? In China alone, the Spring Festival is the biggest human migration in the world, as over 400 million people will empty the cities and return to their rural homes across the country. Lunar New Year is a public holiday in several countries in East Asia. Chinese Lunar New Year begins at sunset on the day of the second new moon following the winter solstice, 21st of December. This means the new year can begin any time from January 21st through to February 21st, give or take a leap year.
And it's a hell of a spectacle. I want to bring you back to the numbers here for a minute and imagine the scale of this. These people need to use transport, and they will use whatever transport is available.
Planes, trains and automobiles.
Without Steve Martin and John Candy. The numbers are expected to exceed last year when 870 million trips were taken. And even in 2020, when 1.48 billion trips were recorded. Now, those numbers are obviously affected by COVID.
Yeah, COVID lockdowns around here started the day before Spring Festival in 2020. So a lot of people had already travelled, or they were travelling when the cities were locked down.
Yeah, my hometown it's pretty close to Hubei, where Wuhan is.
Yeah, that being where it's all started.
Yeah, it was weird as all hell. They just cancelled the fireworks display and told everyone to get off the streets.
So what did you do?
I went to my friend's house and I got drunk. Shout out to Yaku, getting married next week. All the best wishes with that.
Okay, but you were locked in your house, yeah?
Yeah, I was locked in my house basically the day of Spring Festival. So the fireworks was not the day we were locked. It was the day after that we got locked up.
Yeah.
So the local government, they moved really quickly on it. Locked us up on the day of Spring Festival for 7 weeks. And they put boulders on the highways into the city to stop the flow of traffic. And people were not allowed in or out of the city. We were actually the first city to have a person with COVID released from hospital. We were there. We were there right in the mix, in the trenches. Except the trenches involved my dog pooping on the living room floor.
It sounds like a really shitty time.
You're fantastic. But yeah, the government went to extraordinary lengths to stop people from travelling, and most people didn't. They couldn't. They just stayed at home, and every 2 or 3 days, one person from each house was allowed to go out for groceries. Some places had it harder. They weren't allowed out at all, and the groceries were delivered into them.
Yeah, this is how China deals with COVID, or at least how it dealt with COVID back in 2020. They just locked down entire areas of cities, and it isn't unusual to have 2/3 of 100,000 people tested and not allowed to leave their homes for 2 weeks. You heard about the woman on the blind date, did you?
In Zhengzhou, yeah.
Yeah, so this is what she said on her WeChat. I'm getting quite old, so my parents arranged more than 10 blind dates for me. Not unheard of in China. This happens.
Yeah.
And she wrote that her 5th date had said that he was quite good at cooking, and he invited me to his house so he could cook a meal. Just
like you know your way around the kitchen.
I try.
Yeah, you know what the bottles do. You know what food to put them in.
I do. I know the basics.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, she was in this guy's house on a date, and the community went into lockdown. That guy's community, and she was stuck there.
Yeah, 2 weeks staying with a guy you never met before. And your only company is his collection of porcelain dolls. Or just some guy who just keeps asking you questions about the other dates. Like that. Oh.
It doesn't sound like a recipe for success, does it?
No. After a week or two, she was probably thinking of ways to kill him and get away with it.
Yeah. And his dolls.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, at first, she wasn't too keen on him.
Yeah.
At least that's the story. But he was cooking every day, and he treated her well. She wasn't too into him at first,
but she changed her mind.
She did. She has announced that she's getting engaged to him.
Oh, that sounds like Stockholm syndrome. Best of luck to him, I suppose.
Yeah, this is what she said. At first, it was embarrassing for me to live in another person's home. But soon I found they are easygoing, and I got used to life there. But only a week later, the guy, whose name is Faye, his parents suggested they think about marriage. The woman, Xiao Qing, she disagreed, saying it was far too early. And besides, she didn't like him anyway.
That's the most Chinese thing I've ever heard.
And of course, yeah, the parents, they are awfully forward about these things. Yeah. Anyway, after living together for a few weeks, she said she found it easy to get along with Faye, and said their souls are compatible. And of course, yeah, her parents, they're very happy with him too.
Now that's the most Chinese thing I've ever heard. I have friends who've broken up with their partners, their boyfriends and their girlfriends, just because their parents were unhappy. That's really common in China.
Yeah, that's very, very common. But yeah, get this. She said that they are planning to marry after waiting 6 months because they don't want to be impulsive.
She doesn't want to be impulsive. Somebody needs to get her a dictionary and point her to the word impulsive, because I don't think she knows what it means. But yeah, whatever. Best of luck to him.
Right, so where were we? Travel numbers, Spring Festival. 1.4 billion trips.
Yeah, so it was 870 million last year, that being 2021, and 1.48 billion the year before. Get this, pre-COVID trips taken, how many?
I don't know.
3 billion. 2.4 billion trips by car.
That's a lot of movement.
That's a hell of a lot of movement. Guess how I know?
I actually don't know. Well, you know everything because you are a weirdo and you love numbers.
Yeah, pretty much. So I kept a news article. About it from the Insider from the 22nd of January 2020.
Right, so this is right before the corona lockdown in China.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah.
We'll give you parts of it.
We'll all listen to it.
Right, here we go. So January 22nd, 2020, The Insider, James Fraisley, he's a freelance reporter. He used to make visual stories about giant squids and skyscraper cities in Yemen.
So visual stories, like photo essays.
Photo essays, yeah. Now, this is the first time I actually paid attention to COVID. And this is his article. There are pictures that go with it too. And all of this is and was common knowledge, but I think people forget about it now. The title: People in China are making 3 billion trips to celebrate the Lunar New Year, and it's not going to help the Wuhan coronavirus outbreak.
Well, it was never going to help it. It's all those people on the move.
It's crazy, isn't it? But they didn't know. Do you know what I mean?
Nobody knew the severity of
what
it was all about.
Nobody had a clue, and then all of a sudden, Spring Festival happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it happened at the worst possible time.
Yeah, like if it had happened in, I don't know, June, they'll lock everyone down for July, and that's it done.
Yeah, and it happens during the summer. The weather is hotter, and according to science, this virus doesn't spread during the summer.
It doesn't spread as much. Yeah,
dies off.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm going to get into the meat of the article. There are bullet points there, but the interesting stuff is in the article. Now, China's Wuhan coronavirus outbreak couldn't come at a worse time. From January 10th to February 18th, for 40 days, China is celebrating Lunar New Year Spring Festival, also known as Chinese New Year. Trains, planes, roads and ferries are filled to the brim as people journey home to be with their families. Now, remember this is another one, right? This is what it was called. The 2019 NCOV virus. Do you remember that? Do you remember when it was called that?
Yeah.
Right at the very start.
Yeah.
That's what it was. It was the 2019 novel coronavirus.
Yeah.
It was the NCOV. Was first noticed in a meat market in Wuhan, China, which sold animal products like cats and bats. But it's since spread to Beijing and Shenzhen, as well as South Korea, Thailand and Japan. One case was reported in the US, and airports are screening passengers for the virus. Now, that's all a quote from an article that was released on the 22nd of January 2020. There was one case in the US, and they started screening people at the airports.
Yeah, and back then, they had no idea what was in store for them.
Didn't have a clue. Nobody knew. Anyway, it continues, right? This is the article. This is more from the article.
Okay.
Travellers are wearing masks to try and avoid catching it. But one of the best ways to avoid catching the virus is to stay away from public places. Yet, that's difficult in China during the holiday, especially as this new year overlaps with university students' winter break. By Wednesday, the virus had killed 17 people and infected more than 500.
Numbers,
yeah. 500 people were infected in January 22nd, 2020. One case in America. And the thing about the numbers is 17 dead, 500 infected, and that all links to a CNN article.
So was it banned?
No, this is a weird one. Like, sometimes CNN doesn't work, sometimes it does. But foreign news is not banned in China. Like, I was reading CNN this morning without a VPN.
What's a VPN?
It's a virtual private network.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, I wouldn't know what they are. But the bans, they tend to be social media and pornography and that sort of thing. Pinterest is banned, which is, why the hell is that banned? Anyway, the CNN article that it linked to, that was the cool bit. So it was a CNN daily live feed about what was happening in China with regards to COVID and how it was spreading. It was just automatically updating.
All right. What was the starting point of all this?
Of the live feed, I don't know. But the first death was the 11th of January. And it was when we were finishing work before the Spring Festival. And it all happened so incredibly quickly. Wuhan was actually locked down on the 23rd of January. That was the day after this article. And that's why I saved it, because they locked down an entire city. And this was the article the day before.
So yeah, getting back to the Spring Festival thing, that's probably why it spread so quickly.
Exactly, yeah. There were also a lot of people who were caught outside the country. Some people were stuck abroad in Vietnam and Cambodia and stuff for months, unable to return. Now, if you think critically here, the title of the article was 3 billion trips were expected in 2020, and there were 1.4 billion trips. So basically, people travelled back to their families and then they were stuck, and the return trips never took place.
Yeah, and some of those people are still stuck abroad.
Some of them are
2 years on.
Yeah, 2 years on.
Because, the COVID, it's still affecting travel. QR codes are still in use at train stations, bus stations, you name it. And of course, this time of year, the government, it always steps up its efforts to control the spread of the virus. Beijing Daxing International Airport has established a 24-hour nucleic acid test site. Travellers can be tested without having to make an appointment, and their results will be available in 2 to 4 hours, which is pretty rapid. According to the latest epidemic control protocols, all travellers entering Beijing after January 22nd are required to have a nucleic acid test no later than 72 hours after their arrival. And if they are coming from abroad, they are brought straight to a quarantine hotel. And almost everything is contactless. There's an app for all of these things.
Yeah. Beijing West Railway Station will handle 3 million passengers during the entire Chunyun. That's a daily average of 75,000 travellers. The 3 major railway stations in Shanghai, they're expected to see about 174,000 trips on the first day of Chunyun, which was Monday.
Yes, 75,000 people getting trains each day for 40 days. That's just one train station. And it'll be like that all across the country.
All across the country, yeah.
Yeah, they won't hit those numbers, but they will be quite high.
They will be high,
all the same. And of course, if you want to get to one of these train stations, you are going to have to prepare yourself. It's a good idea to order your tickets days in advance. You don't have a choice, really. Tickets, they're going to sell out fast.
Yeah, that's right. They'll be gone. There's 25 million people travelled by train on Monday, and that was just the first day. But the train system is set up for enormous numbers. Pretty much every train station in China looks way bigger than necessary on any normal day. It isn't until you get to the Spring Festival that you understand why these train stations are as large as they are.
Right, onto planes. The Civil Aviation Administration of China said nearly 600,000 passenger flights are taking place during the Chunyun period, with the potential for another 20,000. And if there's an outbreak, they're going to act immediately to shut down travel.
So there's a likelihood of another round of Spring Festival lockdown.
Yes, the ever-present elephant in the room.
Yes, and plane travel has become a lot more lot more popular over the recent years. The prices are not that much different to the train ticket prices.
They are often cheaper too.
They are. And the government doesn't want people travelling. Before we look at that, who are these people? Who are all these people who are travelling? Who are these people who are living so far away from their homes? Now, there are 285 million migrant workers in China. Now, a migrant worker is a guy who works away from his home. 116 million are called local migrant workers. They're close enough to their home. 99 million are intra-province migrant workers. That means they're in the same province as where they're from, but they might be on the other side of the province. And then there are 70 million who are inter-province, and they work in a completely different province to where they are from.
Yeah, as we speak, there are 10 provinces and regions in China that are registering COVID-19 infections. And 8 regions in 6 provinces have detected the highly contagious Omicron variant. It has arrived, it is here. So people from those places, they're not going anywhere, unfortunately.
Yeah, they're not. They're stuck. Now, municipalities like Beijing and Tianjin and provinces like Central China's Henan, East China's Jiangsu, and North China's Inner Mongolia. So really a good spread across the country. They've called on local residents to stay put during the holidays. Many cities said they're even going to offer cash or coupons for migrant workers. So Anhui's province's Hefei, that will reward each migrant worker who works during the holiday with 1,000 yuan, which is about $157, as a bonus. And Anhui's Wuhu will give migrant workers 200 yuan. Would $30 be enough to keep you away from your family?
No amount of money would, to be honest with you. But there is a counterpoint to all that in some cities, for as long as it lasts. Yiwu, in East China's Zhejiang province, will make all parking lots, buses and A-level scenic spots free during the holidays, which makes me think they are encouraging tourism.
Well, they've opened new rail lines. They have to use them at some point.
Yeah, and even in some of the bigger cities, you can still get in and out.
Yeah.
In Shenzhen, you need a green health code, which is on an app that tracks your contacts, and a nucleic acid test within 48 hours of leaving the city. You need both of these. So you can leave, but only if you don't have the cocoa pox.
The cocoa pox. Yeah, just as an aside, one of those new rail lines that we spoke about there, it's the China-Laos Railway. It's a fast train from Kunming to the Laotian capital of Vientiane.
Yeah, I heard all about it.
Yeah, they managed to open up part of it, most of it. It does go cross-border now, but it isn't finished for one very good reason. Did you hear why?
Something to do with bombs, right?
Yeah, 270 million tons of bombs were dropped on Laos during the Vietnam War. There were 270 million tons dropped by the Americans. More bombs were dropped on Laos during the Vietnam War than were dropped during the entire Second World War. So construction work is pretty slow and dangerous.
Yeah, to put that in perspective, there was 1 ton of bombs dropped for every person in Laos. And apparently only 70% of the bombs that dropped actually exploded. The estimate is there were 80 million tons of unexploded bombs in Laos. Yeah,
the bomb disposal teams, they're having a hard time of it. Last year, they had 3 bomb disposal experts die. You know, they were just clearing out bombs for the thing, and they just died. It's a tough job, not one I'd want to do. Laos is the most heavily bombed country ever, and it's never been at war with another country.
One of the heads of the project, Li Bin, is quoted as saying this: "You can never imagine the scenario the first day I got here. The county chief with militiamen demining led the way, and local people chopped trees," Lee said. He and his workers had to inch forward on foot since no machinery could get in.
Yeah, so they were literally clearing the land by hand.
Moving forward very, very carefully. Li Bin said he doesn't think the bombs could be cleared in 100 years, such as the scale of the job.
You'd need an army of armies to clear that up. Obama said he'd give them 90 million to help clean it up, and then he didn't. And he didn't apologise either.
Yeah, that's mad, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the migrant workers. These are people who are separated from their families for long periods of time. Often, this is the only time during the year that they will see their families. Spring Festival.
Yeah, and I know from personal experience, I've got some of my families are over on the other side of the country. Like, families will have members working on other side of the country, and there's a very stark difference between wages in rural parts of China compared to the more urban areas.
And that got us thinking about the effects of travel.
Yeah, it
did. The other day, didn't it?
Yeah, it got us thinking about when babies were born.
Most babies in China are born in November. Double the number that are born in other months.
Yeah, no, that's 9 months after Spring Festival. Baby numbers were down last year. A coincidence? I think not.
Yeah, you can't make babies if you are halfway across the country.
It's actually insane, the difference in numbers. There were almost 2 million fewer babies in 2021.
Yeah, and this is after China got rid of the one-child policy.
Yeah, if the Chinese government could give all the married men in China Viagra, they would. They need more babies.
Indeed. But it's a double-edged sword. The more they improve things like infrastructure, the higher, of course, the cost of living will be. And what that means is that some people, they just don't want more than one child. They can't pay for them.
And one of the easiest ways to fix that is just let people go home. There were 7 million less babies last year when compared with 2016.
It's a problem. And I imagine getting more Laotian workers will happen in the next few years. Maybe they will make some babies too.
Well, if the government has its way, there'll be plenty of good loving over the Spring Festival.
And if this Spring Festival goes off without a hitch, maybe we're approaching a new normal. Let's hope so.
Let's hope so. It would be nice to get back to a bit of freedom. It can seem sometimes like we're trapped here. Lots of foreigners are just going home.
And probably never coming back.
Yeah, unfortunately I can't, because someone would have to look after my dog.
Yeah, the dog won't feed itself, will it?
No, it will not.
And neither will we. And so with that, we're going to let you go. We're going to sign off. Please like, subscribe. You can contact us on Twitter at The China Podcast, or you can email us at the China Podcast at outlook.com. Enjoy the start of spring. Winter is over.
Toodles.